Hi, welcome to episode 6 of the Disobedient Podcast. This is Saurabh Srivastava, the founder of Planet of Disobedience. And in this episode, we are going to talk about how to deal with creative blocks. So we'll cover different aspects of a creative block, starting from just the creative block, how to get rid of the creative block. Second, we'll talk about what to do when you don't feel that passion towards your art anymore. Then we'll talk about how to deal with online hate, because as I have seen with my community, that is one major reason why creatives feel blocked, because they are too afraid that on their last post they got some hate, and if they create something else, more people will hate them or something like that, right? And then last, we'll talk about how to diffuse the pressure of creating good art every single time, right? So yeah, let's dive right into it. So how to get rid of creative block? I'll begin with kind of a controversial statement, that is, creative block is a myth. And here's why I say that. Let's visualize an example of a pipe coming through your head. This is your creative flow, which is going on your instrument of creativity. For me as a writer, it's my keyboard, right? So it's going from here on my keyboard and then reflecting on the screen. If you are a painter, it could be a canvas. So it's going from there to your canvas. So whatever your instrument of creativity is, imagine a pipe from your head to there. And then imagine a small blockage or a small stone. That is your fear. So all of us have some certain fears within ourselves related to our creative process and related to our creative capabilities, right? So what if people find out that I am not as good a writer that they thought that I am? What if this artwork turns out to be very bad and people unfollow me? Whatever it is. What if I create this write up and my boss fires me? So whatever that fear is, so you have to dig deep within yourself and find out what that fear is. But that's part of another video. So this is your fear. On most days, this fear is small, this big. Your creative flow, your creativity flows around that fear in the pipe that we are just imagining and goes to your instrument of creativity, and that is how you are able to create despite being afraid, right? But on some days, this fear becomes big enough that now this is this big and it is obstructing your creative flow, and now your creativity can't flow through it towards your instrument of creativity, right? And that is when you say, oh, I am blocked, I can't create, I have a creative block, I have a writer's block, I have an artist block, whatever you call it. And there is no fancy way to fix it. You just have to push through it. And once you push through it, you realize that all it needed was a little bit of courage to get over this creative block. You didn't need to go seek more inspiration. You didn't need to do some meditation or any other voodoo shit. You just needed to push through it. All you needed was a little bit of courage. So when I am sitting down and I'm writing and this fear comes into my head, oh, what if this turns out to be a shit write-up? What if this turns out to be a bad story? I just finished that story, despite of having this constant feeling that this story is going to put me out of business. I just do it, and most of the time, 90% of time, it's just good enough. Maybe a little bit of revision tomorrow, and it's good to go. And that is all you have to do to get rid of your creative blocks. Just push through it. Okay, so now that we have established that it is most of the time your creative block is just you being afraid, let's look at some of the common fears that creatives have that lead to these creative blocks. And number one is the fear of online hate, how to deal with it. This is one of the major fears that many creatives have, and I won't lie, even I have. You put your heart into your work and you put it out, and then people don't like it, or worse, people hate it and they give you bad reviews, bad comments, whatever it is. Here are a couple of ways I like to deal with it, that I have learned how to deal with it, and let me share it with you. Number one is to see if there is a takeaway for you. If you got 10 hate comments in past 6 months, let's say, analyze those comments and see if there's a pattern. If I am a story writer, for example, and if a lot of people are telling me that my stories are dry, or I don't include a lot of dialogues in my stories, or if you are a painter, if people are telling that your paintings are too colorless, that you need to introduce more colors, or if you, whatever it is, whatever that your art form is, analyze those hate comments and see if they are just hate comments or there is some feedback you can derive from it. You don't necessarily need to implement the feedback, but you obviously should know that what your audience is thinking about you, right? So first step towards dealing with any kind of online hate on your creative work is to find out if there is a pattern, or to find out if there is something you can learn from them, if there is a takeaway for you. Okay, then we move on to more subtler aspects of it, and that's where we arrive at empathy. You have to realize that the person on the other end might be going through something, as we say, everyone is going through a struggle that no one knows about. Look at all the people in your life that you know kind of well, and you will realize that no happy person ever shits on other person. Even if they have to give you a feedback, they would be very sweet with you. They would try to justify it, they would try to frame it nicely. So if a person is being blunt, and if a person is being rude, it's most probably that life has been rude to them. It's most probably that someone else that they dearly loved has been rude to them, right? Then also you have to realize that if someone is giving you hate comment, or if someone is trying to hurt you, they are not your people. So they are better off being blocked by you, or they are better off not being your followers anymore. So I'll give you an example. Last year sometime, I just put out a quote saying, "Hey, I'm trying to launch my own NFT collection or whatever it is. Would you be interested if I do something like that?" And I got so much hate for it, right? It's like a lot of issues came up, a lot of myths, and a lot of true issues, pressing issues that we have with NFTs and the problems with them. They came up, and people started commenting, and people started messaging me, and people started unfollowing me. And there I realized that the people who were my real followers, they were writing big comments, 2-3 paragraphs explaining to me what's the problem with NFTs and why I should not go that route. They were commenting me, and some people even messaged me personally trying to explain that, "Hey, I've been following you for some time, but I just cannot support this move of yours." And this was a minority of people. On that particular day, we lost 300 followers. That is the biggest follower loss in history of our page, right? And I was a little taken aback, but then I realized that, okay, these were not my people to begin with. If they will leave me just for an idea of mine, maybe they are not my people. So don't be afraid that someone will hate on you and leave you. They are not your people. You're better off without them. And then the last thing that I think about is what a privilege it is to even get noticed. We live in a world with so much noise. Everyone and their grandmother have an Instagram page, or a blog, or a YouTube channel. And most of the work that doesn't get noticed, does not get any feedback, negative or positive. So if someone took out time to write something for you, that's a win in its own, right? It's a privilege to get noticed in the first place. It struck a chord. Whatever you were saying, whatever you were trying to convey with your artwork or with your write-up or whatever it is, it struck a chord. It made someone feel something. So that in itself is a win for you as an artist or as an online creator. So yeah, these are some ways I try to go about online hate and making sure that it does not convert into a creative block. The next fear I want to talk about is the performance pressure. This was actually a message sent to me by one of our followers that, "Hey, I really like what I do. I really like my creative process, but whenever I sit down to create something, I'm always struck with this fear that what if what I'm creating is not good enough? What if I'm not improving with every single art? What if I'm not doing better? And what if people don't like it? And what if they leave me? And whatever it is, So there are many different ways to deal with, this performance pressure, this pressure to create good art or better art every single time. And one very obvious answer could be whatever time, let's say you are spending 3 hours per week on your creative process, spend 3 hours trying to learn your craft, take a course, talk to a mentor, talk to a fellow artist, try to improve yourself. But I took a slightly different angle in answering this question for her, and that is what I'm sharing with you. And that is that don't try to create better things, try to create different things, venture into new things often. Whatever your art form is, try to go a little left, right, back and forth, and try to explore new aspects and new elements in your own creativity. And here are a couple of things it will do for you. Number one is it will free yourself from this desire to get better returns every time. So for example, let's take an example of a page or a blog that pushes out love stories every single week. So I am a writer and I like writing love stories, and I'm writing a love story every week and putting it out. And it's very obvious, it's very natural for me to expect that every love story would be better than the previous one, because I am doing certain things, it's going on in a row. So one has to be better, two has to be better than one, three has to be better than two, and so on, right? And not in terms of better in terms of quality, but I want it better in terms of ROI as well. So if my first story got 10 views, next has to get 15 views, and then next has to get 20 views, and so on. My expectation would keep on rising like that. And that's a trap within itself. And when I don't get that return, I feel disheartened. And then that could lead to a performance pressure and a kind of a creative block. So when you try out different things, number one, you get rid of this ROI problem. You were writing love stories, suddenly you wrote a horror story. Now you cannot expect people who came to your blog to read love stories to like horror stories with the same passion. It won't do so well. It's very obvious. So in your mind, you are like, hey, I'm trying to do something new, and it's obvious that a lot of people won't like it. So now you have freed yourself from this trap of getting better returns on every single artwork that you put out. Number two is it would make you a more matured artist. It would broaden your horizons. So even if you have been writing, if you have wrote 100 love stories till date, and you go off track a little bit and write 2 horror stories, completely horror stories. Now, even if you want to come back to writing love stories, you would be like, okay, yeah, now I know something about horror stories. You can include an element of horror in your next story, in your next love story. So now you are a more well-rounded, more matured, and more potent artist, right? Number 3 is, when you try out different things, very often you hit gold. If you're just doing a simple thing and keep on doing it and doing it and doing it, you might be missing out on something else which you're relatively very good at, and your audience loves it as well, but you never explored it because you just stayed on a single track, right? So if you try out 10 different things, one out of those 10 things might just hit gold, and it might just go viral, and it might change the course of your creative journey. So yeah, don't be afraid to try out different things, because it will free you from this trap of getting better returns every time, and it will make you a better artist in the longer run. But there's a caveat to it. If you're posting diverse things on your page, on your blog, on your website, whatever it is that you're trying to do, you need to show some personality. Let's take it this way. If your entire blog, your entire page, your entire channel is about love stories, then people only know you for a love story page. And if you write something else, if you just step a little bit out of your tight niche, they won't like it, because they have come there for love stories. That is what they expect. But if you start showing some personality along with love stories, over time, they will not be just connected to those love stories that you are putting out. They would be connected to you as the artist. So if you are showing up, doing maybe a live every day, every week, and showing your face, you show how your life has been. You talk about your ups, your downs, your struggles, your wins. And in short, if you show your personality, and if you are building an artist brand on the back of those stories that you are putting out, now people are getting connected to you. Older people who came for love stories, they are getting to know the artist that created the page, the artist behind the art. And newer people, because you are so active on your page, newer people are getting connected to you first, and then they are getting introduced to your artwork. So now you are the central element of your page. Now whatever it is that you do around yourself, they will like that as well. Because if I am interested in you as a person, I would love everything that you are doing. But if I'm interested in just one particular activity that you are doing, I only want that activity from you. I am not interested in anything else, because I don't know you as a person. So yeah, show your personality. That will give you a lot of freedom to try out different things, and that will relieve a great deal of performance pressure from you. So now that we have established that your creative block 95% of time is just your fear, and we have also discussed some of the common fears that artists go through and how to go around them, let's talk about those minority cases when it's not the fear that's stopping you, but maybe something else. And that this is again a question that one of our followers asked me. It was, hey, I don't feel that passion towards my work anymore. And that this is different from a creative block. The creative block, at least in my definition, is when you're stuck on the execution phase. You have the idea, you know what you're trying to create, you know by when you're supposed to create, you know everything, but you're just stuck on the execution phase because you are stuck in this overthinking that what will happen if people don't like my work, what will happen if this happens, what will happen if that happens, whatever it is. But in this, when you don't feel the passion, it could be that you are stuck on the idea phase itself. You don't even get the idea. You're stuck because you don't know what you should be creating. Or maybe you're stuck even before in your creative journey, even earlier, that you don't even feel inspired enough to go out and look for ideas. And when that happens, when you start feeling that your passion is slowly receding, and to solve that issue, here are a couple of steps that you need to go through. Number one is to find out why it is that you're not feeling that passion towards your art. Very often could be that there is certain life event that is consuming so much of your energy that you are not able to you're not able to give that energy to your passion. It could be you have a conflict with a family member or a friend. It could be that your exams are going badly, or your work situation is not right, or maybe you fell in love and now you're suddenly all your creativity is inclined towards that direction, to woo that girl or boy. So whatever it is, step one is to see what is happening in your real life and then take steps towards solving it. Either solve it completely. For example, if you're having a fight with a friend, go make up for that fight, apologize. If you have a crush, go confess it to her or him. So try to solve it, or at least take some steps towards it. That is step number one, to start feeling passion, that same passion again. Step two is to just push through it. As we talked about in creative block, most of the time it's just your fear coming in front of you in different forms. So you just have to push through it. That is step number two. Step three, if you've tried pushing yourself and it's still not working, if you just pushed yourself and wrote something or painted something, and regardless of whether it came out nice or it came out badly, you still don't feel that passion to it, towards it, then you can move towards step three, where you go out and actively seek to recharge your creative batteries. Whatever it is that inspires you. Maybe going for a walk inspires you, go do that. Maybe hanging out with your friends inspires you. Maybe talking to a fellow artist, maybe talking to a mentor, maybe reading a new book, maybe watching a series that you like a lot, maybe watching a TV series or a movie that you liked a lot in the past. You can watch it to get yourself inspired. So do whatever works for you to recharge your creative batteries. You can take out a few hours in the evenings or on the weekends to towards this specific goal, that I'll sit down and try to do things that make me feel creatively inspired. That is step number three. If even that doesn't work, you move to step four, that is to take a complete break. If you have taken some time out and try to recharge your creative batteries, try to seek some inspiration, try to get back to your creative self through that means, and you still don't feel that passion, then you move on to the next step, which is to take a complete break. So decide 1 week or 2 weeks, whatever period that you feel fit for you, and take a complete break from your main creative process. In this period, you don't create anything, as well as you don't even write your ideas, that, okay, I got this good idea, maybe write it down, I'll write a story on it, or I'll make a painting, or write a song, or whatever it is. You take a complete break whatsoever. If any idea comes, you just let it go. And that often works. It very often works. When I'm in the worst phases of my creative process, I just take a complete break and I start getting so many ideas, and I just keep discarding them ruthlessly. And that brings that love for my passion. Hey, I'm getting so many good ideas, and this person is just discarding towards it. So I start getting a little bit angry also with myself, because I am discarding all those ideas, and that further fuels the passion to get back to the desk and to do the work that I love. But there could be a case where even that does not work, and that is when most of the time the case is that you are not challenging yourself enough. So try to introduce some new thing in your artwork. Take the next step. If you have always been doing something in a particular way, explore new ways of doing things. Take the next step, challenge yourself a little. Maybe you have been doing it for a few months or a few years even, and things have become too easy for you. So that is where you step up your game and make things a little more difficult to you. Try to learn a new element in your own creativity. Try to take up a challenge. Try to take up a new client, whatever it is. Try to make things a little bit more difficult for yourself. And if all of these don't work, you have spent few months, trying out different things, you trying out all these steps, and still you don't feel that passion, then my friend, it could be time for you to just move on. I know it sounds difficult, it sounds hard, it sounds bad, but it is what it is. Just like a relationship between two people is not always meant to be for a lifetime, it does not mean that those two were bad people. It just means that the span of their relationship was just that much, and you have to move on. And same sometimes happens with your creativity also. Maybe you're done with it. Maybe you have seen everything in painting that you needed to see, and maybe you started painting when you were 14, when you didn't have, you are differently inclined towards seeing life, and now you see life in a completely different way. And to express that, you need a completely different medium. And then you just move on. You're not starting something else from scratch now. You have an experience doing in a particular art form, and whatever next thing you do, even if that is not related to art, even if you just go for a normal corporate job, you will be an artist within. That art, that investment that you have put in will come up and flower in different ways. So you just move on, you try out new things. Maybe a few months or a few years from now you'll get back to it, but right now, if you have tried everything else and you don't feel that passion for your art, move on.